Every investment we make with the idea that they may pivot when these really kind of hot markets. That's awesome, but it's also going to be quite competitive. And the more competitive a market you're entering, more weight needs to go on the founder. So you better have an incredible founder.
Hadley Harris
is a world-class venture capitalist
who has invested in unicorn companies like Hinge and Anchor.
What do you think separates a successful founder from the vast majority that just don't make it?
You can be unsuccessful for many reasons. It's hard to say, but I think just...
Welcome back to Decoded. My name's Alfie Whattam, and this is the show where I speak to experts about what it takes to build great teams and companies. Make sure that you click the follow or subscribe button for more great content like this, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. Okay, Hadley, you've invested in Anchor, which I used to publish this podcast, which exited to Spotify, as well as the dating app Hinge, which is now valued in the billions, the shopping app Tap Commerce, which was acquired by Twitter, and so many other massively successful companies. So what do you look for when you're deciding to invest in a startup?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's there's no just kind of one thing you can look for, but I'm a seed investor. I'm generally investing pre-product market fit. There's often not like a ton of data. There's often not a lot of traction. So it's no surprise to you to hear it's all about the team and getting to know the founders really well. And even what works kind of in different industries, I think, is different. You mentioned kind of a couple more consumer companies, do a lot of B2B, that those can be different. But generally, really smart founders that are tenacious, that know generally their market really well, who have some sort of secret, about how the world should work within their target that others haven't heard before. Generally, if there's nothing kind of unique about their approach, that can be tougher, and the biggest opportunities tend to be built with someone who has that kind of unique insight.
I do a little bit of pre-seed investing myself, and it's exactly the same thing. Team, background, story, right market, because you don't have much numbers or metrics to look at or traction or anything like that most of the time. So I guess when you're taking all of that stuff into account, how important to you is like founder market fit? Because everyone talks about product market fit and we need to iterate our way to get there. But in the early days, you haven't even begun that journey a lot of the time. So when it comes to more founder market fit, you said there that that's important to you. Have you made bets before in really amazing founders that have got no knowledge about a space? Or, is that a deal breaker for you? What are your thoughts when it comes to that side of the coin?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, especially I think it's pretty timely because I think this kind of ebbs and flows depending on kind of the cycle and where you are in a cycle. Right now, I feel like we're in the real kind of steep part, or at least a steep part. There may be multiple within kind of the AI kind of LLM driven, transformer driven AI boom. And I would say that we're in a situation where deep expertise in your field probably matters as little as it has in my time as investor. I've been investing for 15 years. I think you tend to see this. It's a similar kind of portion of a lot of cycles. For example, I think when you had kind of social, the early years of social, Mark Zuckerberg had no experience. I think if you look at kind of Snap with like when kind of social went to mobile and like the mobile cycle, similar situation. So I think you're seeing a lot of really young founders raising money, some of them in industries that traditionally you would see like a very kind of grizzled veteran attack, but because they are so close to the technology and kind of how to utilize AI, they're, these kind of cracked founders that are up all night and working really hard and kind of innovative, they're actually being successful, or at least kind of having early success in these markets. So yeah, long story, I know probably more winded answer than you wanted, but overall, I do think it's quite important. But the level of kind of importance, I think, it is kind of depends on the situation as well as kind of where you are in those cycles.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. I mean, I can relate to that. I'm a VC founder myself of an AI startup, and the types of AI that we're building it was impossible to have a background in it because it just didn't exist a few months ago. However, we're building an application layer AI company within the recruiting space, and I was a recruiter for a decade. So I had that domain knowledge that I was able to apply to this space to get the VC funding. But the large language models that we're building on top of, they weren't a thing 6 months ago. So
Totally.
it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. What about in terms of the actual raising of that capital? Because you wrote a document a couple of years ago called How to Raise a Seed Round in Less Than 40 Steps. I've read a ton of presentations, white papers on this stuff. Most of them are complete nonsense. This was very valuable. And in this, you highlighted the importance of founders trying to get a warm intro to investors, something that we all know. But if they can't, they should try to approach them in a highly creative way, highly customized way, and try to do that directly, which I think is really important. And it's something that most people don't talk about enough. They just go for warm intros, and that's always the holy grail when you can get that. But if you just can't find an intro to that person within your network, then don't just give up. Still go after them, but do it in a much more customized manner than just a generic mass spam email attack, right? I know this was a few years ago when you wrote that document, but could you give me an example of a customized approach that you've seen work, to whether that's somebody approaching you to get capital and you've never spoken to them before, or just something more general? What kinds of things could founders be doing creatively to approach VCs if they've never spoken to them before, or if they don't know anyone that could connect them?
Yeah, I mean, I'll read pretty much any inbound and respond any email that I can tell was actually written for me. So as long as it's not like obvious kind of broad spam, I pass on 99% of them, just given a lot of them aren't a fit, and I get a lot of stuff that's well outside of like what we do at ENIAC. But I especially kind of take time with anything that's very customized for me. And granted, like, with LLMs, this is going to get harder and harder to tell. So it's almost like, yeah, shame on you if you're not having some sort of customization. But generally, like, being able to map something about why I'm a particularly good fit for them, and they may be of interest to me. So it could be like, I saw you invested in XYZ company, we're very similar, but for this other industry. Or I saw you tweeting about this topic. Actually, that's a perfect example of at the end of the day, like, just showing some sort of level of effort tells me that there may be a fit there, versus like the, hi, Mr. Harris, and it's like, obviously just kind of auto-generated. So those tend to work well. The other thing I would say about kind of warm intros, a lot of people don't have, networks, and that's fine. Like, if you didn't, not everyone went to Stanford and whatnot, but I do think that that is something you can kind of build over time, right? So it's like, let me build my squad. And my squad's not VCs, it's people who might know VCs. It's other founders, it might be people, existing people in my network, and try and arm them, maybe make them advisors, or give them some skin in the game, and then get them to do the warm intros. Because while like a really well customized reach out works a lot better than just kind of a mindless cold reach out, I still think that if you can get warm, that's better. And also you can do both.
You had a really good point there where you said, in a world of Gen AI, the customization will become harder to detect over time. And I've seen this where I've received what appear to be customized Loom videos to me, and then you can just tell that the voice is not quite syncing with the lips, and then you realize that you're being catfished.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Like, you see a lot of M dashes in the email. It's like, okay, I can see this.
Yeah. This is a quick message to tell you about my company, Alpha AI. We built Lisa, the world's first AI-powered recruiter who screens candidates for you on autopilot. You can make your recruitment process 10 times faster, 90% lower cost, and significantly improve the candidate experience, all with our AI agent for hiring. Learn more at welovealpha.com or click the link below in the description. And now, back to the episode. I mean, the tools are getting so good that it's becoming very hard to tell. And, as VO3 and whatnot accelerates, then who knows, if you'll be able to even notice anymore. With that in mind, do you think the importance of having a warm intro will become even more important over time? The A16Z said that the reason why they only accept warm intros is because it's like the first test of a founder. Like, can you network your way to a introduction? And if you can't, then you're probably not going to be able to sell this product, because figures, you need to have those skills. Do you share that sentiment in a world of Gen AI making customized outreach become easy for anyone to do?
Yeah, I think in general, I do. I think there's some validity to that. It is, the bar is relatively low, but there are really talented founders that may be difficult because of their background or kind of where they are. So that's one of the reasons, just more from like a personal philosophy point of view, I try to read inbound. It's not something everyone in my firm does. It's interesting you say that. I could see that, but I also could see the opposite, because at the end of the day, we're going to be building our own tooling to vet these inbound like pitches, and hopefully we're kind of training models in one way or another to be able to identify things that actually are a fit, even if they come in cold. So I do wonder whether we're at some point going to get to a point where, as long as there's enough signal within what's being sent in terms of the deck and being able to go out, fact check, okay, this person did have this degree, this person did work here, they to where we can tell they do have XYZ traction or something. I could actually see it swing the other way, where we have more of a democratized input to venture capital, which I think generally would be a good thing. I think too much venture capital kind of flows through small networks, and talent is relatively evenly dispersed throughout the world.
Okay, you understand this very well on the other side of the coin as a founder. Most of the VCs that I speak to, they've never even worked in a company, so it's great to speak to somebody that's actually done both sides of the coin. But prior to investing, you built 2 successful VC-backed startups yourself. So as somebody who has been there and done that, what do you think separates a successful founder from the vast majority that just don't make it?
It's tough to say. I mean, you can be unsuccessful for many reasons, and you can be kind of successful for many reasons as well. So it's hard to say, but I think just general kind of tenacity and kind of hard work is something that I've never seen a founder just kind of like lazy their way to like good results. And I think at the end of the day, and it's a hard thing to tell when you're meeting someone during a pitch process, but even if I look at our founders now, there's a big difference between the people that are clearly like, ruthless in terms of going after their markets, both from a just hard work perspective, but just kind of doing what they need to do, within the bounds of kind of their own, don't do anything wrong, or don't hurt people, but do what you need to do to take those markets. So I think that's probably the biggest factor, is that kind of tenacity for going after what they want to do, that kind of separates them.
Would you rather have a founder who is 120% all in, but in a market that you're not that excited about? Maybe it's a space which is kind of gone up and down, but never really quite reached the heights. Or would you rather have a founder who maybe they work hard, but not quite as hard as that other person, but they're building an AI agent in some very, very fast growing domain with extreme market pull? If you had the choice of the two, which one would you go with?
I would probably go with the first one, just because you can pivot. Especially I'm like a very early stage, like pre-product market fit seed investor. Every investment we make with the idea that they may pivot, or at least things will certainly change. Kind of being in the second example of kind of like one of these really kind of hot markets, that's awesome, but it's also going to be quite competitive. And the more competitive a market you're entering, the more important it is to like more weight needs to go on the founder. Like I think a lot of people actually get that wrong. They're like, oh, it's like a okay founder in an incredible space. Like, well, that incredible space is going to be cutthroat, so you better have like an incredible founder going after that space. So yeah, I'd probably go the first one. Where I would avoid that, and I have seen this happen, is you get an incredible founder who's going into a market that just doesn't make sense, or it becomes revealed over time. It's not like you purposely have them go into that market, but they just are so passionate about this market that like, I just want to build in this market. And it's like, well, that's awesome, this is your life, so you should do that, but it's going to be like harder for me to get excited about that over time.
If you were founding a company today, what market would you bet on personally?
Well, I have like a real like soft spot for kind of voice as a modality. I helped build the first voice-based assistant back in 2007 to 11, so I've been like very big on multimodal and like voice interfaces before it was really that ready for prime time, and our technology got folded into Siri, and have to see Siri kind of suck over many years. And actually, I think what we built was better than Siri even a long time ago. So that all that all being said, like now that voice I think is ready for prime time from both kind of input and understanding perspective, like that's an area I'm extremely excited about. It's obviously come very hot. So, like I was just saying, you got to kind of pick and choose wisely. But I'm a big believer in kind of voice interfaces as a natural way for humans to interact with computing. I think we're moving over time to a multimodal interface where it can be visual, touch, voice, all depending on the situation that you're in. So I'm really excited that things are kind of starting to blossom around that.
I'm with you. I mean, that's exactly what I'm building. Like, it's a voice agent. It does thousands of calls every single day. And when I first started doing this, we really were unsure if people would be willing to speak to an AI. Not people that are crazy like me and you who live and breathe in this world, but the average person walking down the street. But what we found is people are more likely wanting to speak to this rather than a human, because it could be available 24/7. It instantly gives them the right information. It doesn't lie. It doesn't get sick. It doesn't go off on a tangent about something else. It's just giving them the right information instantly. Even the other day, I called up a restaurant to make a reservation, and I could instantly tell it was a voice agent, and I was excited. I was happy to speak to it. It got the information, made the booking, and it was just a much better experience.
Yeah. I think where we are right now, and this I think applies to recruiting, is voice agents are in a place where if the person on the other side wants to accomplish some sort of task, I think they're great. Where I think sometimes it gets misapplied is people trying to use them where the person on the other side doesn't want to do that kind of thing, like kind of outbound sales. And I just don't think we're quite there. And I think you're going to see kind of poor results. And especially when you're in a state where they can tell there is some difference between speaking to a human and not.
I agree completely. Like, everything that we're building ourselves is for inbound applications rather than going out there. We tried it. And to be honest, you're absolutely right. Like, if I got a call from a robot trying to sell me something or trying to offer me a job, I'd hang up. Like, this is, we're not quite there yet. But I do think as people become more and more familiar with large language models, we will eventually get to that point. But just for now, it's a step that most people are not willing to cross. But we'll get there eventually.
I think so.
One thing that I am always very keen about is the origin stories of successful founders and investors, and most of them have very strange stories in their background. So, for example, you had a marketing campaign which involved fake parking tickets when you were 13 years old at Beantown Odd Jobs. Tell me about this story. This sounds like something very, very interesting. Yeah,
I was always pretty entrepreneurial, and I grew up in downtown Boston, which you may not know is the kind of nickname is Beantown. And I started an odd jobs company, and I kind of hired folks like friends of mine to help kind of execute the odd jobs, painting and cleaning and moving and stuff like that. And we got a decent amount of business. We weren't super busy, but I had an idea in Boston, at least at the time, they had these bright orange parking tickets that cars would get when they park illegally. So I went down and I printed up one. The parking tickets looked exactly like the real Boston parking tickets, but they were they were ads for Beantown. And I went around to put them under the windshield wiper, which is what they do parking tickets in Boston. And it just like blew up. Like I had to like sit by the phone taking orders. I had to like find other people. The problem is it's illegal. So like the doorbell rang, and I opened the door. It was like two Boston police officers with this like big, holding like a stack of these things, and they were like ready to like arrest some dude. Like they were showing up like ready to go, and they were like, oh, like yeah, my name was on, so they're like, where's Hadley? And I was like, oh, that's me. And they're like, oh, like fucking kid, like, so it was kind of funny. They didn't arrest me, but they're like, okay, we found all these, like, go find wherever you have other ones and put them away. So that was my first like exposure to guerrilla marketing, both like the way, it can work really well, but you gotta watch out for the law. You do. Okay, I'm a huge fan of meditation, and I know that you are as well. I used to be religious about it, and then I have two small kids now, and it's becoming very, very hard to do so. But why is this habit important to you, and I guess why should other founders embrace mindfulness? Yeah, I started to get into mindfulness about 7 years ago, but actually it's funny you mentioned kind of it's harder with kids. It was when I also have a 2 and 3 year old, and when my younger son was born, I had a month of paternity leave, and I kind of had some time on my hands because my older son would nap a lot and whatnot. So I was like, what would happen if I meditate half an hour every single day? I think first for like a week, and like a week in, I was like, oh, this is incredible. And then I actually haven't stopped, and that's I think like 3 years or almost 2 years ago, ever since. So I meditate at least 30 minutes a day. No matter what, I find a way, even like traveling or moving and stuff, I'll kind of sit in the stairwell or whatnot. And I just find it gives me a lot more clarity on life, and just like an understanding, as you probably found, like, you start to have an understanding of your own mind and can kind of see your thoughts for what they are. I think most people live in a world where they're just constantly reacting to things with no understanding of kind of what that is. And I think meditation gives you a chance to kind of step back and kind of see it for what it is. And then control is maybe not the right word, but like being able to decide kind of whether you want to go down this path when thoughts start to calm or different kind of sensations arise.
Are you music guided, mantra? What's your style?
No, I follow a style called Vipassana, which is kind of insight meditation, and something I've kind of picked up and been fortunate to learn a lot of great teachers here in the US over the last few years. So I sit kind of silently for 30 minutes.
Do you do any breath work?
I don't. No, Vipassana often starts off with watching your breath. I always found that kind of hard to not control my breath. So I would focus more on just kind of like body sensations, the feeling of sitting. And at this point, I'm generally kind of not doing any kind of particular focus on anything.
Okay, my meditation has fallen off a cliff since my little one is a few weeks old, so I've got a good enough excuse.
Oh wow!
If any.
Okay, if you ever have an excuse, that's it. But
yeah.
I mean, one thing I'll say is, like, I find meditation, it's like a nice hack for falling asleep. So like when I sleep at night, I kind of lie down, meditate, and I naturally fall asleep. You probably are having to go back to sleep a lot. That maybe that's a good time to try and pick it back up.
Yes, it is. Cool. Hadley, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. If people have enjoyed and they want to learn a little bit more about you, would X, LinkedIn, the fund's website, what would be the best place for them to go right now?
Yeah, on X, formerly known as Twitter, very easily, I'm just at Hadley, Hadley. I'm on LinkedIn. My firm is ENIAC Ventures. So yeah, happy to have folks reach out.
You've got the Hadley on X.
I did, actually. Jack Dorsey hooked me up thanks to my partner Nahal. So yeah, I still
amazing.
own for that.
That must be worth something.
Maybe.
Cool. Amazing. Thanks for your time.
Awesome. Thanks, Alfie.
Thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you click the follow or subscribe button wherever you're watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Introducing Lisa, the world's first AI-powered recruiter. She's an AI agent who works 24/7, screening candidates on autopilot, conducting interviews in 30 different languages, uploading all the best candidates to your applicant tracking system. Hire 10 times faster at 90% lower cost, and significantly improve the candidate experience. Visit welovealpha.com to start your free trial now.